So I'm marking and cutting a short length, 1 1/8", 28 millimeters off this thin dowel, and then that short length drops into the lower hole at the bottom of the head. The longer one goes into where the eye will be, and then the middle piece drops over, like so, and the top piece will locate exactly, and that dowel there also doubles as a marker for the position of the eye. We're now ready to glue it up. Good, so we're going to glue up the 3 parts for the head. I'm using this polyurethane glue, which is quite a modern glue, very fast going setting glue, and just use this glue applicator. A kind of good spread so that the glue itself will expand a little bit and squeeze out from the sides once we put the clamps on. I'll spread it all over here. And there are other types of glue that you can use as well. Cascamite is excellent, and there's always white woodworkers PVA glue which can be used. That's it. And now the clamps, 3 G clamps to hold it together. Okay, so now while that's setting, we can have a look at the seat back and the seat and do the first little bit of shaping. This is where the child's legs are going to hang over, so just to make it a little bit more comfortable, using a surf form. And you can see that as you start to curve that around, it reveals the contours of the plywood going around the corner. On the seat back, we're going to round that over, take the sharp corners off, and do that again with the surf form. I've clamped the seat back onto the corner of the bench so it's held firm. And carry on like that until we have it rounded over all the way round, and this one has been sanded smooth as well. Now if you have a router with a rounding over cutter, you could do the whole of that rounding over on a router rather than by hand, which might be neater. We've now got the seat sanded smooth and rounded off at the front here, and the whole of the seat back all the way around nicely rounded off, and that's sanded smooth as well. And we can now turn to the head and do some real carving on this. Now some of this carving we'll be able to do with the round surf form, but mainly we'll be using a pair of carving gouges and a chisel. So I've got the head clamped firmly on the bench so it's held secure, and the first thing is to pencil in a guideline using the curve on the underside of the cheek there, and letting that curve on round and curve right round to the base of the ear like that. And then using a chisel we're going to cut straight in, starting at the top and working our way round, and you'll notice that I've got the chisel at a little bit of an angle towards the neck side, which is going to be the waist side, and cutting all the way down there. And now picking up the 1 inch, the 25 millimeter shallow gouge, again starting at the top and cutting that in, so we've now got the curve of the cheek revealed, and I can take that a little bit deeper. So it's at the top, it wants to start about 1/8 of an inch deep, maybe 3 millimeters, and then gradually get deeper, and down here towards the chin it will be probably 3/8 of an inch, 9 or 10 millimeters deep. It just gets deeper as it goes down there, and then it'll curve on down towards the center. Now we're going to start to round over the top of the neck, starting from the base of the ear up here and working on down the full curve of the neck using the big gouge again. And you can see as we're cutting away, as we're rounding this over, we're beginning to reveal the contours flowing up the edge of the neck there. The head is going to sit down on the front of the seat like that. So if we just sit that on there at the moment temporarily, so that we can draw around the curve at the front there, and that gives us a guide to curving off the front of the neck here, which we're going to do next. Right, so I'm now going to pencil in some more guidelines. At the base of the cheek here, that curve carries on round a little way across there. And then at the front, where there's a little bit of a curve on the edge of the wood there, that's the position of the nostril. We're going to carve that away in just a moment. And also at the bottom of the jaw down here, the mouth is going to wind up something like 1.5 inches wide, that is about 38 millimeters, and so we'll take 3/8 of an inch, about 9 millimeters off either side of the wood here, so the whole jaw is going to be narrowed down quite a bit, and we're still using the larger of the gouges. Right, now we're going to put in a couple more guidelines, penciled in the shape of the nostril here, where that curves around right near the edge of the wood there, an oval shape. And we've got this nice sweep back there that we've carved in, so the oval of the nostril goes there. And then further up, remember the dowel there marks the centre spot of the eye, and that's framed by an eyebrow which will come over it like that, and then this runs on down there. We're now going to move to the smaller gouge, cutting in above the nostril here so that it really enhances the way the nostril flares out towards the bottom there, down towards the mouth, so that basically the whole of the head is starting to taper down towards the narrower mouth. Okay, I've now got the head turned up on its end so that I can look at the front of the ears, and I'm going to draw in, pencil in some little guidelines that just indicate the shape of the ear, looking at it from the front up to sort of a point, or blunt point anyway, near the middle, and a curve in towards the bottom. Now some of that we can take off with a coating saw. So that begins to show the shape of the ear as it goes up towards the point. So I can now take a little bit more off the tops of the ears, shape them round in towards the middle of each ear, so they're rounded over. And at this stage we've more or less completed the rough carving, so we've got a much nicer shape now than we started with, lots of rounding off. And at this point we can probably dispense with the gouges and go back to the surf form, because a lot of these very big ripples we can remove with the surf form. Just be a little bit careful that you don't lose the sharpness of your carving, particularly around the nostrils and at the front of the ears. The gouges can be a little bit intimidating, but the surf form certainly gets rid of a lot of the ripples that the gouges might leave. Now there's a little bit of shaping on this rather flat side of the cheek, which we can put in if you wish, and that's just cutting this back in here with the gouge. And of course the surface here is still quite rough, and there'll be a lot of sanding to do, which we'll come to in just a minute. But before that, the final operation of the carving is to cut in the teeth. That just takes a little bit of the cheek out there. We'll now look at the teeth, and with a coping saw we've got a little bit of a cut out top and bottom already that was part of the wood. And then with the straight chisel cut the teeth in both sides. So we're now ready to start sanding it off, and I'm going to use a power sander, a little 1-inch 25mm sanding drum in a drill, and I'll want a bit of face protection for this because we'll be throwing up some dust. So with the head all nicely sanded off, the last operation is to fit the eye. We're going to drill an eye socket here with a 5/8 16mm Forstner bit. Just a shallow hole. It goes in 3mm, about 1/8 of an inch. Right, we're now going to set the glass eye in. It's a real glass eye, so it's about the last thing that you put in after the sanding's done, because the abrasive in the sandpaper will scratch the glass eye. So put it in right last. I'm just mixing up a little bit of filler, which I'm going to wodge in the eye socket, and then we can push the eye. There's the eye. Push that in. The filler, just poke it right in. The filler squeezes out all the way around, and just scrape off the surplus. And then just with a damp rag just clean off around it, and the eye is nicely set in, quite firm, so it cannot be taken out by a child at all. It's very firmly in, and the filler is a light cream coloured, sort of pine coloured filler, so that the colour of that shines through the glass and you get that rather nice amber, shiny amber eye with a glint in it. So the head's now finished and we're ready to go on to the final assembly. Right, we're now going to put the spindles in for the seat. If they're a little bit tight in the holes, you might just need to sand them off a little bit at the ends and get them to tuck in. A couple of big ones at the front, and then a line of smaller ones round the back. Now I'm just assembling this dry initially, just to make sure everything goes together. That's that. Okay, the legs are fixed on with these screw dowels, which are a very simple but very strong way of fixing. The dowel drops into the bigger hole, and then the bolt pushes through the cross piece and up and tightened up. Okay, So that one, the one with the single leg in the middle and the 2 holes for the footrest, that's the front leg, and the other one does for the rear. Tighten that up. It goes on the rockers 8 inches from the front. That is just over 203 millimeters from the front of the rockers. That gives a nice kind of balance when the child is riding. We've yet to put the head on, of course, but there's just 4 screws that secure the little cross pieces onto the rockers. So the head is secured with 2 long screws from underneath and glue. We've got the head handle in. There's the footrest slides in through one of these holes here, and then all the construction is complete. We would now take it apart, give it a thorough final sand down, get rid of any little sharp edges, any possibility of splinters, and then glue and varnish, and it'll be complete. Okay, nice little finishing touch here, bright red bridle. Okay, and one little final thing that you might like to add is a little padded seat goes on there, it's just a little bit softer for the rider. Okay, so there we go, all finished, ready to rock.